All right, everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at what is going on in what I like to call the interwar period. This is the years between World Wars One and Two. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and begin. So after World War One, international organizations and agreements, they are put in place to try and stop future world conflicts, but we're going to find out just how well that actually worked. All right, so the League of Nations, that was started to basically talk issues out so that there would be no more fighting going on and needless death and destruction. All right, so, good in theory, but let's find out just how good it was in practice. Especially since, the United States, our president came up with it and we did nothing with it. We are the Senate, voted that we just not participate because we didn't want to get pulled into any more nonsense that's going on with Europe. All right. Now, the League would fail because it had no power to enforce any decisions that it made. Okay. So they didn't have any type of military force to coerce people to follow the rulings that they made. So they were basically all bark and no bite. The Treaty of Versailles, we had the mandate system. I told you about that a little bit last time, where the winners of World War One basically got control over the colonies of the defeated powers such as Germany and the Ottomans and all that. And it would be temporary until those territories could then begin governing themselves. All right. And this map right here shows at least a little example of who got what. So like the country of Turkey was formed out of the now gone Ottoman Empire. They were independent because that was basically where the center of power was for the Ottomans anyhow. So they already had government and political structures in place. They just were not allowed to keep territory. So like the French got Syria, British got basically Iraq, we got Palestine. Other areas became independent with at least some oversight, such as Saudi Arabia and Iran. And just a little heads up, these borders that we have here and that a number of them are still in place today, they were just lines that were slapped on a map in Europe, and they do not go off of any particular ethnic group or religious groups, which is how we have the mess that we have in the Middle East today, because it was a bunch of white guys in another continent that were like, hey, I want this piece of territory. You can have that piece of territory, not caring who falls on what side of those borders. So we can blame the Europeans for a lot of the mess going on in the Middle East over border disputes and ethnic group disputes. All right, so one of the biggest things that we get to talk about with this interwar period is the worldwide depression, or as we call it in the United States, the Great Depression. Right, so this is following the 1920s, where everything was, everything was basically just a big party. All right. So big thing that we have there is it all comes to a crash in 1929, and then it's just bad, bad, bad throughout the 30s. Okay. So a lot of governments became weakened due to the economic depression. And so we have not a lot of backbone being able to combat against these rising upstarts that are promoting more totalitarian governments, basically where there's a small council or an individual in charge of government. So like socialism and communism are the ideas that are going on to say that they have the answers to fix the economies and get the countries back on track. Now, what caused the worldwide depression? Well, for one thing, people over speculating on stocks in the stock market, basically spending money like very, very idiotically, to be blunt. Basically, they keep buying more and more stock because they don't think the numbers are ever going to drop. That's over speculation. Never thinking that the market's going to go down and only keep going up. All right. People are living off credit, basically spending money that they don't have and they expect to be able to pay back later. All right. High protective tariffs, that's high taxes on trade goods coming into the country. And well, for Germany, they have such high bills to pay because of the war reparations, the bill for World War One. It is excessively high interest payments that they have to pay, and the whole country is in debt. So let's take a look at what the reparations cycle really is, and this will help explain a lot of why money was worthless during this time period. All right, so Germany pays reparations to Britain and France. Okay, so the money is now in Britain and France, and they pay debts that they owe to the United States because we loaned them a bunch of money during the war so that they didn't go bankrupt. And then we, in turn, are loaning money to Germany. So you just see it's just this vicious cycle of people paying people. So while Britain and France is getting out of debt to us, Germany's now getting in debt to us because we're loaning them the money from Britain and France that they're using to pay Britain and France. It's a very vicious cycle, and it was a big mess. Then we have the crash of 1929. All right. So, yeah. All right. Now, this picture right here, this just shows how worthless German money was. They were printing money. It's just stacks and stacks. And, what might cost you, let's say it's a $3 loaf of bread today, with the amount of inflation, the valuelessness of money, this time 2 months from now, that same $3 loaf of bread might be worth $2,000. That's how bad the value of money depreciated. Now, the impact of a worldwide depression is we get high unemployment rates in the industrial leading countries, places like the United States, like Germany, like England, like France. Banks, they are going out of business, just like they're gone. They lose people's money because they were investing people's money as well, and now they have no money in their vaults, so people can't get their money out of the bank, so everybody loses. All right, so prices for world trade, they just drop through the floor. And then you have like what's going on in Germany, parties such as the National Socialists, otherwise known as the Nazis, growing in prominence because they are saying, they have the answers and they have someone to place the blame on. And of course, they're blaming the Jewish people for the economic collapse because stereotypically, Jewish people were the businessmen, they were the bankers, they were the traders, they were all that type of stuff. They're also still at this point social outsiders. They still live in like their predominantly Jewish neighborhoods and don't really venture outside of them too often. All right. So the weakening of the democracies because of the economic crisis. So yeah, that is a big problem there. So there's also less money in national budgets to like fund programs and things like that. So fascism and socialism, those types of philosophies are just starting to spread kind of quickly. We even had a socialist party that was a major part of our government as a third party for a number of years during this time period. All right, another cause was expansion of production capacities. So we're making a bunch of stuff, but we can't sell it. And that is also going to basically lead to investors in foreign countries pulling out and taking their money out because they're losing money. So it's like, why bother? So that's just going to help. That's really what kicked it off going in, other countries outside of the U.S. We started it, and we were the first domino, and everybody else fell after us. Besides Germany, they were already in a rough spot anyway. All right. Now this will be the one of the last slides. In Germany, the Nazis, they blame the Jews, like we said before, and they begin to grow in importance until they eventually become the leading political party under a certain tiny mustached guy named, I think you should all know this, Adolf Hitler. All right, last slide for the day. So with the economic issues following World War I, we get unstable political conditions in the world. The Depression of the 30s provides the opportunity of having weakened governments that these fascist and socialist ideals need for rising into prominence and taking over countries such as the Soviet Union, which was the first one to fall to communism. And then we have National Socialism in Germany. We have fascism in Italy. And we have basically military dictatorship in Japan. All right, next time we'll be taking a closer look at these countries and their leaders when they rose to power. So, yeah, I will see you for that next time.